Call this meeting of the June 5th Planning, Zoning, and URCDA to order and ask you all to rise with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Summers, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Benberry.
Here.
Commissioner Griffin.
Here.
Commissioner Kaler.
Here.
Commissioner Morrison. Commissioner Pollard.
Here.
Commissioner Rhodes.
Here.
Chairman Wade.
Here. Commissioner Rhodes, you have our minutes motion, I believe?
I do, sir. I move that the reading of the minutes for May 1st, 2023 be waived and the minutes of said meeting, as prepared by staff, be approved as written.
Second.
And that was with the corrected minutes that I sent out today and is at your place at the dais for those two small changes.
Any corrections, additions, deletions? Hearing none, Mr. Summers, will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Rhodes.
Aye.
Commissioner Benberry.
Aye.
Commissioner Griffin.
Aye.
Commissioner Kaler.
Aye.
Commissioner Pollard.
Aye.
Chairman Wade.
Aye. Commissioner Griffith, I believe you have our first action item.
Yes, sir. I move that this commission go into closed session for discussion of matters pertaining to the following topics: proposed or pending litigation as permitted by KRS 61.810(1)C.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Griffin.
Aye.
Commissioner Kaler.
Aye.
Commissioner Pollard.
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes.
Aye.
Commissioner Benberry.
Aye.
Chairman Wade.
Aye. We'll reconvene in the pantry room. Commissioner Griffin, would you read our motion?
Yes, sir. I move that this commission reconvene in open session.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Griffin,
Aye.
Commissioner Kaler,
Aye.
Commissioner Pollard,
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes,
Aye.
Commissioner Benberry,
Aye.
Chairman Wade.
Aye. We will now continue on our normal agenda items. And Commissioner Pollard, you have our first item.
I move that this commission determine that 1437 Martin Luther King Jr. Drive is surplus property and accept the request of Crockett Howard Properties LLC to transfer the property for $1 to construct a single-family home subject to the standard clause applied in the Fountain Avenue revitalization area, stating that the property would revert back to the city if the owner fails to comply with the submitted proposal and fails to substantially complete the project within 1 year.
Second.
All right, Mr. Summers, I apologize. I reverted to old habits rather than have you do the staff report on this first.
That is fine, Mr. Chairman. We are all on a learning curve. But thank you. This proposal is for a single-family home, 1 bedroom, 1 bath. The lot is really small. It's a little over 3,000 square feet, 3,450, and the home is proposed to be 600 square feet. About a year and a half or 2 years ago, the Planning Commission adopted a text amendment to allow homes to be built on smaller lots without the necessity of a variance. That way, the view shed remains the same. So staff is forwarding a favorable recommendation to this body.
All right, any questions?
You do have a signed copy of his proposal on record, right? There was no signature here attesting to all
I
of these.
believe Ms.
I-
Upchurch has that.
Okay.
Any other questions? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Pollard,
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes,
Aye.
Commissioner Benberry,
Aye.
Commissioner Griffin, Commissioner Kaler,
Aye.
Chairman Wade.
Aye. All right, Mr. Summers, our next item is Vermont Street.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is actually an item that is on the table from the last meeting. Whenever we received the plat, the entire right-of-way of Vermont Street was not closed on that particular plat. On the revised plat, it is closed all the way to Olympia Avenue. So as far as good practice, we don't want part of a right-of-way closed and part of it being undeveloped and unused. So they went back and closed the entire right-of-way of Vermont Street, which is a total of 33,722 square feet. And each property owner adjacent to it will get half of that closed right-of-way. And so, Mr. Chairman, I'd be glad to answer any questions that you all may have.
I have a motion.
Well, let's see, Commissioner Kaler, you have a motion to
I do.
remove this from the table.
I move that this commission remove from the table case number VAC 2023-0003 pertaining to the proposed closure of a portion of Vermont Street.
Second.
Okay. Let's go ahead and call the roll for removing from the table.
Commissioner Kaler,
Aye.
Commissioner Pollard,
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes,
Aye.
Commissioner Benberry,
Aye.
Commissioner Griffin, Chairman Wade.
Aye. So we already have a motion in front of us for this. I don't think I gave you a number to reread that, did I? Mm-hmm. I did? Well, please go ahead.
I move that this commission adopt a resolution forwarding a positive recommendation to the Board of Commissioners to vacate and close 33,722 square feet of Vermont Street between I-24 and 169 Nolan Avenue, 100 and 137 Vermont Street, and 125 Ridgeview Street.
Second.
Point of clarification on that, the address is 124 Nolan.
Did I read it wrong?
He said I-24.
Oh, sorry. I just think big.
I don't even know if I heard that one.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So I believe I had a second.
Yes.
Okay, so
second.
it's moved and seconded. This is a public hearing. I will ask anyone who's speaking for the project, positive or negative, to come to the podium and identify themselves with your address and make any comments to us as the commission. And we will take that testimony in as we make our decision. And our decision is based on the comprehensive plan, the ordinances of the Paducah Planning Commission, as well as the comments that we hear. So I believe with that, Mr. Garner, you have some comments for us.
I do. Michael Gardner from SiteWorks. We're the ones that are the engineers for this. As Josh has said, we were going to close just a portion of it, and then it was recommended to close all of it so everybody could get their share all the way through. A little history. This is in an unrecorded subdivision, Phillips Park subdivision, that was originally in the county, never recorded, but as the city annexed past I-24 and toward Bleach Road and Lone Oak, this was taken in by the city. Vermont Street's an unimproved street, never been used, just a piece of land out there. If it wasn't for us staking it, I mean, nobody would ever know that it was anything other than just ground. So it lies between what is reserved for a street in Phillips Park subdivision all the way over to Olympia Avenue. And as you can see, we've cut it up into tracks where everybody will get their share. We did add one easement on the Olympia Avenue part because Mr. Niehoff he's got an existing driveway there. He's been using that for years. And we've got an easement there where he can continue to use that where it goes all the way over to the 50 North LLC property. And also 50 North has the opportunity to use that driveway as well off of him. It's a reciprocal easement that we've dedicated, so everybody's covered. There's no utilities in the property whatsoever. Never has been, and it's just a piece of ground that's just been there for years and years. Phillips Park is a very, very, very old subdivision.
Any
Dated
questions?
before, I'm sure, any of us have been born, including me, and that's a long way. And I'm happy to answer any questions you got.
Anyone from the audience have any comments? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. And from this commission, any other questions, comments before we vote? Hearing none, Mr. Summers, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Kaler,
Aye.
Commissioner Pollard,
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes,
Aye.
Commissioner Benberry,
Aye.
Commissioner Griffin,
Aye.
Chairman Wade.
Aye. All right. Josh, our next item I have is Olivet Church Road. Do you want to report on that before the motion?
I sure will. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a request from Duff Real Estate to rehear and reconsider the case of 4160 Olivet Church Road. In April, this was denied basically on a 3-3 tie. So Duff has requested that the Planning Commission rehear this case at their next regular or called meeting.
Okay. Commissioner Benberry, I believe you have the motion for this.
I move that this commission rehear and reconsider case number APP 2023-0002 pertaining to 4160 Olivet Church Road at the next regular or called meeting pursuant to notification being made in accordance with KRS 424.
Second.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Any question? roll, please.
Commissioner Benberry.
Aye.
Commissioner Griffin.
Aye.
Commissioner Kaler.
Aye.
Commissioner Pollard.
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes.
Aye.
Chairman Wade.
Aye. All right, our next item, Mr. Summers, is Village Square Drive.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This one is coming to this body because it is in a mixed-use zone. The request is for larger signs on the north and west facades. The north facade is 626.1 square feet, and the sign would be 6.34% of that facade. The west facade is 1,092.8 square feet, and the proposed sign would be 1.95% of the facade. The petitioner's professional representative is here tonight to answer any further questions that you all may have.
All right, Commissioner Griffin, I believe you have the motion for this.
Yes, sir. I move that this commission adopt a resolution approving the amendment to a development plan for property located at 5120 Village Square Drive.
Second.
Moved and seconded. We will enter into a public hearing on this and invite any comments, positive and negative, to come to the podium and address the commission. All right, hearing none, we will close the public hearing on this item. Any questions or comments from the commission? Hearing none, Mr. Summers, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Griffin.
Aye.
Commissioner Kaler.
Aye.
Commissioner Pollard.
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes.
Aye.
Commissioner Benberry.
Aye.
Chairman Wade.
Aye. All right, our next item is North 3rd Street. Mr. Summers?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a similar request that we heard back in September for the same address at 322 North 3rd Street. The specific request is for a light industrial operation in the B3 zone, which gives this body the authority and power to grant those. The most recent proposed use was Bitcoin mining before the current petitioner took possession of the property. What they're proposing to utilize the building for is cryogenic freezing, freeze drying, storage, and packing of food ingredients, probiotics, agricultural seed coatings, and cosmetic ingredients. And also a portion of the building is proposed to be used for retail, restaurant, office space, mixed use, and I'll talk about that in a little bit in more detail. I'd like to go over some of the changes between the last petition and this one, and plus what the proposed new activities are. Is that the nitrogen tank, which was originally proposed to be in front of the building, is proposed to be vertical. The new storage tank for nitrogen is approximately 9 foot 6 inches tall and 44 feet in length, which will be horizontal and screened behind a block wall. The Planning Commission also reviews these with performance standards such as smoke, noise, odor, glare, vibration, and heavy freight traffic. As far as smoke or fog, as it was in the last case, there's been new technology proposed for this building to where super-cooled air will begin to pre-chill the coolers in the rear portion of the building before it's collected and warmed up to air temperature and go out through the roof. So there wouldn't be any formation of fog. As far as noise, the last proposal was for the offloading of the nitrogen to be with a diesel generator, and now it's been proposed to go electric, which is much quieter, which is actually being used at a facility in Germany at this time. There shouldn't be any odor or glare or vibration, none that's anticipated. As far as truck traffic, there would be anticipated 2 liquid nitrogen delivery trucks a day, which would come in off 3rd Street, and 7 shipping and receiving trucks, which would be proposed off Madison Street. And of course, Most of the commissioners, as well as staff, took a tour of the building, and that was staff-led, so that you all could formulate your opinions, thoughts, ideas independently, and bring those back to us as staff, which we relayed to the petitioner and answered your questions in the staff report. Some of the new proposals that would happen with the building would potentially be public tours, which they would utilize the upstairs on the second floor of the building where the offices were for their billing and things of that nature, where the public would be able to view the freezing and drying portion of the facility, but not the blending or mixing, because that's more on the proprietary end of things. Also, what is proposed is that 12,000 square feet of the building on the northeast corner would be retail, restaurant, brewery, mixed use, something commercial along that line. What's good about that particular location with inside the building is it lines up with the $10 million bill grant and the City Block project and downtown. So we have a great opportunity to tie that view shed together to where a pedestrian, they see something in the distance and that just wants to bring them further to see what Paducah has to offer. There is proposed to be murals or public art, especially next to the Quilt Museum, that would be painted on the building, and also enhanced landscaping as well. The petitioners have expressed a willingness to close the facility down during festival times, Lowertown Arts and Music, Quilt Week, Barbecue on the River. Because the product isn't seasonal, meaning it's constant throughout the year, there's no peak times of when the facility should be shut down for maintenance. They can choose that at any time for their routine maintenance. So, also, there was a open house which was conducted on the 30th, and I suspect that we'll hear more information about that from the petitioner here in just a moment. But due to the tours that we received and due to the intricate knowledge through that of how the building would function in the new technologies, staff is forwarding a favorable recommendation to this body.
All right. Commissioner Benberry, would you read the motion on this, please?
I will. I move that this board receive and file the application of Cygenic Processors LLC for a light industrial operation in the B3 General Business Zone at 322 North 3rd Street. I further move that the light industrial operation be approved based on the following findings of fact. The truck dock is proposed to be moved to Madison Street, therefore negating trucks blocking North 3rd. Number 2, any supercooled air would be recaptured, utilized to pre-chill the refrigeration system, and warmed to outside air temperature. Therefore, no fog will be produced. An electric pump will offload the liquid nitrogen as opposed to a diesel pump. Therefore, noise would be mitigated. Number 4, murals could be painted on the side of the building across from the American Quilts Museum, therefore softening the building and creating visual interest in keeping with Paducah's art scene. Number 5, total of 7 delivery trucks a day and 2 nitrogen trucks a day are proposed. Number 6, the facility can be shut down for routine maintenance during festivals such as the Barbecue on the River and Quilt Week. Therefore, no truck traffic will be present. Phyllis, it can be. The introduction of retail, restaurant, or mixed-use space would have a further positive impact on Paducah's economy and view sheds. The recessed wall and building upgrades would provide an enhanced view shed that could tie together the public domain of the build, grant, and city block project in downtown Paducah. Number 8, the nitrogen tank is proposed to be horizontal as opposed to vertical and screened behind a brick wall. Number 9, the petitioner would provide enhanced landscaping. Number 10, public tours could help generate interest in the proposed activities and bring more people to downtown, therefore enhancing Paducah's economy. Number 12, the petitioner would move the existing facility in Nashville, Tennessee to Paducah, thereby adding more jobs and notoriety to the operations here. 13, the possibility of industrial accidents has been mitigated through new technology to be used at this location.
Commissioner Benberry, we missed number 11 on that.
Yes. Total of approximately 95 jobs will be created directly, indirectly, or induced.
Second.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Before we proceed, I want to make two comments. One, to reiterate what staff has mentioned. During early May, we had the opportunity in groups of 1 or 2 commissioners to take a staff-led tour. We were introduced to and heard some comments from the owners of and developers of the property, but no questions were by the commission were asked at those. Rather, we asked those to staff who collected information. That, and then also this is a item that is not requiring of a public hearing, but we do encourage public comment and would be happy to accept those under the same guidelines as a public hearing. Would ask anyone speaking before us to come before the to the podium and identify themselves.
My name is Kevin McLean. I'm the representative for cryogenic processors, Vice President and General Manager of the facility. My office is in the facility itself at this point. The proposal is to develop the building as both a light industrial facility to include food type manufacturing in addition to a mixed use space. As we all know, the building is a bit of an industrial look in downtown area that's being developed for tourism. Our proposal includes renderings of the building to vastly improve the overall appearance and also include additional space for further development for retail space, restaurants, those types of activities to further add to the appeal for that downtown area. The mention was for some of the technology that we're utilizing in the facility, we're not developing the technology to mitigate fog. We're utilizing existing technology. There's actually a facility in Nebel, Germany that I visited earlier this year that is operating adjacent to their public school system. Their high school, their middle school is directly next door to the facility. It's operated in a residential area that utilizes technology for both noise control and fog control as part of their operation. They're utilizing the exact same equipment that we propose for this building for their processing. So it's a cryogenic freezing facility, similar to what we're proposing here. We're proposing to add a significant amount of jobs to the area, both direct at the facility. We're adding some additional operations to the building that brought that head count from about 40 from the initial proposal up to approximately 50 for this proposal. So we're wanting to bring in more stable, full-time, high-paying jobs with benefits to the Paducah area. The utilization of the building, it's labeled as light industrial, but we consider it more of a food science type operation because we're utilizing technology to freeze, process food ingredients, food additives, and cosmetics versus welding and stamping and utilizing of steel and all the things that usually come along with light industrial. The building, we do have our renderings for the building that would improve the overall appearance significantly, and particularly at night, to add lighting along the side of the building, to downlight the area to make the area more walkable at nighttime. The area is very, very dark as it sits today. The proposal does include lighting around the building to light that sidewalk area without the addition of a lot of glaring lights projecting away from the building. The building construction allows us to downlight without adding a lot of glare that would traditionally come along with that type of lighting. The truck traffic, the people that are involved with the facility, and the majority of the folks are local. I grew up not too far from Paducah. I understand the area, and what the quilt museum, the quilt show, and the barbecue on the river bring to the facility, bring to the city. The facility is located in that area. It's very much our intention to be a good partner with the city and make accommodations for parking, for the setup for barbecue on the river, for those type of activities. And it's very easy for a facility like ours to go through routine maintenance during those times and accommodate those busy times where that area is a focal point for the city. So we very much do not want to detract from what is going on downtown. We want to be partners with that. We've been working with PFGW to develop the site. They have renderings available. We've went through majority of the engineering. There are a few modifications to the structure of the building that will need to take place for the additional dock. The majority of the renovation will take place inside the building. We do have a representative to speak about the building itself and some of the improvements that we're making.
Thanks, Kevin. Commissioners, Jeff Cantor, Principal Architect, PFGW Architects here in Paducah. We were hired by Cryogenic Processors to provide some renderings and design concepts of what the building, how the building exterior could be improved, to accentuate the neighborhood, to fit better into the context of that area with the riverfront development, the historic downtown, and the neighborhood across the street. We are very, as a business owner, our office is located just 2 blocks from this. As a business owner, I've lived in Lower Town, and I'm also Paducah Main Street Board Chair, and so I'm very, throughout this process, was very cognizant of the concerns of the community. And how we could do this in a way that benefits all and provides an opportunity for Cryogenic Processors to operate in this facility. So we think in your packet you do have some of our rendering concepts with enhanced lighting, enhanced materials on the exterior, places for public artwork to be located along Monroe Street behind the Quilt Museum, and along North 2nd Street between the Farmers Market or along that facade. As Mr. McLean mentioned, we have proposed at the request of Cryogenic Processors to develop a concept for retail or restaurant space, brewery space, something along that lines on that northeast corner of the building at the flood wall opening at the corner of Madison Street and North 2nd. So we developed a concept for that, which I think greatly enhances that corner of the building from being just 2 big blank concrete block walls to something that is, we feel, much more attractive and palatable, and could bring up to maybe 4 businesses to that location, depending on what's what business goes in there. We've kind of drawn it out as 4 different tenant spaces, but it could just be 1. So we're just trying to work with the client and see what fits best in that location. Screening, the screening of the nitrogen tank and existing loading dock, trying to, realize a new location for a proposed loading dock that may be a better fit. So we're just trying to walk through all of that with them and see what's best. We've also got on our design team, Markham Engineering and Bacon Farmer Workman for structural and mechanical and electrical to help assist in this. But we just had to get through this first hurdle first before we proceed too much further with design. So be happy to answer any questions you have about the renderings you have in front of you.
So you're absolutely sure, or you're not absolutely sure where the trucks will come in and back in? The loading dock is shown on Madison Street. Is that still the proposal?
That is, I think, do you want to speak to that, Kevin?
Because I knew there was some existing space on 3rd Street where they used to back in.
The main dock area on 3rd Street is where we propose to receive the nitrogen trucks. One of the the sticking points that was brought up in the first meeting was that there were significant truck traffic blocking 3rd Street when it was operated as a distribution center. So that was one thing that we wanted to address in a proposal to see if we could come up with a different idea to address truck traffic. The truck traffic that we expect is going to be much lighter than it was when it was operating as a pharmaceutical distribution warehouse. It's a 90,000 square foot building. There's a lot of trucks that can go in and out of that building a day. So our proposal is much fewer in number, but wanted to still accommodate truck traffic and not interfere with majority of the traffic on 3rd Street. So we proposed a new loading dock on the Madison Street side. Some of the conversations we've had with, in particular Walker Hall, during the meetings, they weren't necessarily favorable of that particular location. But it's the best alternative versus the 3rd Street location. We prefer to use 3rd Street. It's a much better location for the operation, but we also want to accommodate the city's requirements for making sure that 3rd Street doesn't get blocked on a routine basis.
Okay, just one more question. So if you continue with the loading docks on Madison, okay, where are the trucks coming in? Are they coming 4th Street, coming into town on 4th Street, and then turning onto?
The typical way that trucks would come in would be coming up 3rd Street.
3rd, okay.
There is an approach from 3rd Street to pull into 3rd Street, pull up past the loading dock area, and then immediately reverse into the loading dock area. Because the truck traffic is so low, we don't anticipate having all 3 of those dock doors blocked at any one time, which that would aid in reversing of a truck. There's more space open for them to be able to back in versus a very tight space if the 2 of the 3 were blocked. Based on the amount of traffic, we don't think that it would be a major concern on 3rd Street, but we still want to make sure that we address all the issues and make sure that we're a good partner with the city.
But the question again, I'm sorry about the truck questions. So if you decide to use this other loading dock on Madison, how do you pull in there to back in?
So the trucks will have to go down Monroe Street, up 2nd Street, and then up Madison Street, and then reverse in.
That answers my question.
And how many trucks a day on Madison Street do you anticipate? Was it 7? on that?
Maximum of 7.
Nah.
But they won't all be coming at once, right?
That's correct. They'll be
Okay.
spread out throughout the day.
Spread out throughout the day. So there shouldn't be a line of trucks
No.
on,
We have control
Madison.
over our receiving and shipping hours. We actually schedule deliveries.
Okay.
So the trucking companies call us, they make a scheduled appointment, they show up, we take care, either I'll load or offload them. So we have tight control of that. We don't want trucks parked on the street. If there were to be trucks that need to be parked overnight, if we were loading a trailer and they need to drop, it would be behind the screen wall in the regular loading dock area.
okay, thank you.
Jeff, I've got a real quick one.
Yes, sir.
Item numbers 4 and 9. 4 said murals could be painted. 9 says landscaping would be provided. Do I need to, is one a sure thing, one's a maybe, or is it just worrying about could and should, or could and would?
I might could address that one, I guess.
Yeah, I think from our perspective, what we have been instructed in the conversations we've had with cryogenic processors and Mr. McLean is that they want to do what is right for the community and to make it fit contextually. The building, it's an albatross. It is, and we know that. Everybody knows that. And so whatever we can do, and they've given us instructions in the renderings to provide, places for artwork, and so that's what you see there. I think it's a matter of identifying how those murals would be, who decides what murals are painted on there, what's the process, is it public, is it local artists, which I think is the intention. And so I think there's a process that would have to be thought out about how that would be developed. Is it a rotating artwork? So, but I think the language murals could be provided, I think it's going to be a little stronger. It's going, something will be provided there, so.
So, the intent is to open up the building for development, to make it fit into the city, not for me to decide what color it needs to be painted and it's going to be this mural put on the side. Or we want to make sure it fits in and it's a tasteful addition to the city. So what that looks like, I mean, we're definitely open for suggestion or proposal, but for us to dictate that we want to plaster the building with murals and it doesn't fit in with the city, that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to open it up and develop the space to make it an attractive center point, a complementary building for the Colt Museum, for the flood wall, for the traffic that's moving through that area.
Lighting and landscaping will help a lot.
Very much so. The renderings are amazing, and they really do show off the building.
Any other questions of Mr. McLean or Mr. Tanner?
I have a question.
Go right ahead.
The new technology that is proposed to be utilized to prevent and reused, I looked it up as it was in Germany, I believe, but I couldn't find any other uses of it or scientific or research-based journal articles or prints of the actual proven safety and proven upgrade of that technology. Are you familiar with any of those? Like in journals, typically HVAC or something, they will have something that they will print that's research-based. This works because A, B, C, D. I couldn't locate any of that other than that one usage, and they say it's been safe.
As far as the recapturing of the super chilled air, that process is used in HVAC. Currently, when you have facility that was located previously, you chill the air, you cool the air in the facility for comfort air, but there's so much humidity in the air you can't recycle it. So we'd eject that air and moist air into the atmosphere. We use an air-to-air heat exchanger to recover the cold from the air before it's ejected to the atmosphere. So you pre-cool the air coming back into the building. It's dehumidified normally, and it's a more efficient air conditioning system. This technology uses the same concept, but it uses much higher tolerant media. You can't use air-to-air because we're not chilling the freezer with air. We're actually using refrigerant. So the process uses a refrigerant, air-to-refrigerant transfer in a heat exchanger to recover that air. So we're pre-chilling our cooling media before it goes into the compressor to be chilled again to go to cool our freezer. So it's basic technology, but it's taken to a much lower temperature because we're ejecting negative 200 degree air instead of typical air conditioning air of 75 degrees.
So I get the process. Just the question is there, you can find all of that process like you just explained, but is there any research-based information that shows, because you say it will mitigate or lessen the potential for explosions, incidents, etc. But I couldn't find any research-based information that would say such.
So there are two different topics that we're talking about. So from the explosion perspective, that was the actual cryogenic freezing machine itself that was the issue at Diplomat's facility. I was at Diplomat's during both of those occurrences, so I went through both investigative processes to determine root cause analysis. So for those two instances, the first one we determined the root cause, and we put in place operator instructions, operator parameters to make sure that that particular sort of circumstances that happened didn't happen a second time. The second explosion was a complete failure on the operator to follow instructions, so it was human error.
So I looked at one in Sergeant, that it was in Ohio, 14 December of 21. There was an explosion that went 500 or 5,000 meters away with debris. And it was exactly the same thing, was determined to be error of a human error, but it used the same process. And my concern is that we're putting it downtown where a lot of people will be, and we're saying we are reducing at best or lessening the potential for explosion. And if we all say, oh, let's do this, it's going to be great, and unless there is something, an incident that happens, and then everybody is going to say, well, did we thoroughly know that this was a safe and that this was definitely lessening the chance of an incident, we'll call it. And the answer is, here's the process, but do we know from research-based, from professionals, from scientific trials, that it is, and we can say clearly to the public that it is lessened?
Let me answer that first. I think that's going to probably fall to the city fire and inspections group to make sure that processes are safe. Not necessarily something we can really control here.
Well, I'm just asking, is it research? Is that available? The research document that shows it? Just before we,
Am I correct?
yeah.
That it would be the fire protection group that would,
They would review, our prevention would review the architectural drawings that would be submitted for the rooms where the items would be mixed. So they would review them according to the plans. And Mr. Cantor, you might be able to answer this better than I could, but there would be a statement or assurance in there about what those walls could tolerate in case there was an incident. Mr. Cantor, if you want to.
Yeah, so the Kentucky Building Code, 2018 Kentucky Building Code is the current building code for the state. We would, and we've already begun this process, but until we get through this step, we didn't want to go too far, but we have been looking at the building code. What does the building code require based on this use? Life safety is paramount, not only for those in the building, but those outside the building. So we've got local engineers on the team to walk through this with us structurally, mechanically, electrically, what is all going to be required to make this a facility that not only meets building code, but exceeds building code. So I think Mr. Benberry, as far as, the empirical research of the safety of, these mitigating exercises that have been done, that I can't answer, but I do know, just having been in this process for the last 4 months now, one, I've learned a lot about cryogenic processes. Two, I still know very little about that process because it is complicated. But three, that what Mr. McLean and his organization has learned through these incidents, previous incidents at other locations, is that they've engineered the responses they've learned from those incidents. And they've engineered, taken the reports, the investigative reports from those incidents, and engineered different processes to eliminate those issues that cause those incidents. And so, I don't know about research.
I just want to, like even with the nitrogen tank, I know that we moved it from being vertical to horizontal. There's always some danger or opportunities for incidents from trucks to transfer with humans. And we use this word, mitigated, as makes people comfortable in the installation or approval of said this, but the reality would be less than proficient to use all of that and not bring out the core that we are using. What someone is saying, well, I've looked at these incidents and this should be better, and that's about the basic of mitigation, but we don't know. And as I looked across the country, it's not just the small incident that happened and occurred at Dippin' Dots, but I found many with that from the nitrogen from this process that had issues of incidents. And I couldn't find anything that said this is why this won't happen again, or is lessened in writing.
So
And that just, again, I know fire safety will look at building, they will look at the codes that we have, they will look at manufacturing codes, but there's nothing that I can say, this is better because it's been tried, tested, and true. And so that the community will feel better. And if we don't say that, I feel like perhaps we're just not being forthright with the community, especially those close, that this is still a real opportunity.
Do I remember, as far as the nitrogen transfer, that due to noise, you're going to an electric pump to transfer, which is, I think, it's not the diesel, so it tends to be a bit safer. I mean, just because it's electricity versus gas for me, but.
it is. So we're utilizing a few different processes for safety. So on the explosion side that happened in Dippin' Dots, we're no longer using that particular design machine. It's been completely scrapped for that process. That has been known to have an issue. We had corrective action in place, and that failed. So the next step is to eliminate it altogether. So we're using a completely different set of machinery to process that equipment that completely eliminates the problem area that we identified as being the potential for explosion. That has been completely engineered out, and we're actually testing. I've got a patent pending design for a new system that further mitigates that to make it completely open where there isn't the possibility of overpressurization. So those steps have been taken. I'm officed in that building. I plan to be officed in that building, and I feel completely safe operating inside that building based on the changes that we've made and the parameters we've put in place for that operation. Liquid nitrogen itself, nitrogen is not hazardous. It's 78% of the air we breathe today. It itself is not explosive. It's overpressurization is where the issue happens. And that has been eliminated in that particular operation.
It has been, I'm sorry.
Has been eliminated in that particular operation, but you can't overpressurize a vessel that's completely open to atmosphere.
Joe?
Some of the truck that I even read were some of the things with the liquid nitrogen, over 100 pounds, which I know that takes over 100 pounds, was not even with the system. I think 80% of them were with the transfer from the transportation to the vessel that was taking it on. And again, it may not ever happen, but I'm hesitant to say that this is completely, we're good, and put out a false, hopefully, to God, it never happens, but to say, or to allude to that we've taken care of all of this and this is good. We use what happened in Dippin' Dots and we replaced that, but there's other places that the same thing has happened in that process, that cybernetic process, has caused some incidents. And I don't know what specifically they are. I don't have privy to that documentation, but I think that we ought to say or know, and for the public and people, that there are some possible, maybe low to medium opportunities of incidents happening in that place. It is not completely eliminated. It is a chance. And we don't know the percentage of the chance, actually. We know we lowered it from some number, but we don't know the limit. I mean, we can't say it's a 2% chance versus an 89% chance. We can just say it's lower. And for the community, people living around it, that area, if I was down there, I would say that's important. Or for the city itself, say it's important, just from my standpoint.
The same suppliers that are supplying liquid oxygen to the hospitals are also supplying liquid nitrogen to those facilities. So they're operating under those same safety parameters. The trucks are operated by specifically trained individuals. It's
the size you're looking at. And I'm not,
Those
those
are
are,
pretty good sized tanks at the hospitals.
they are, but it's about a third of the size of what we're looking at here, maybe a third. So I want to make sure that it's understood and discussed. It would like moving the trucks from 3rd Street to Madison. Walker Hall, I think I heard, didn't like the idea, or perhaps see some problems with it. So is that going to be 7 trucks per day, 9 trucks per day on 3rd Street blocking traffic? If they,
But they're
there's a lot of
backing
ifs.
completely into the building, so.
No,
And he said they shouldn't be lined up. They'll be staggered throughout the day.
we're not sure that's happening though, correct?
We have complete control over scheduling of trucks for
He
both
has
delivery and
complete
loadout.
control. He
No.
didn't say that.
I mean, the movement of the docks, is that a done deal?
That's what we're proposing for this proposal, so
Yes,
that is
that's part of their
what we're seeking approval for.
And the owner of Walker Hall is not here to raise a concern. I've heard that, what you heard too, but yet we don't have testimony to hear from them, so,
It's on-street parking.
yes, that's true too.
I live in Lower Town, and I'll, if my neighbors have a party, I get no parking either, so.
With the trucks moving around that block to do that also, I mean, we'd have to have, at some point, the city would have to increase the weight ability of that full block at a cost of something, because nine or 7 trucks per day loaded at
Okay.
the block, so.
It operated as a pharmaceutical distribution warehouse for many years, and I know that they had truck traffic
Lots of
throughout
trucks,
the
I
building,
remember that.
around the building and surrounding
On
streets.
3rd
So
Street,
Yeah.
go around.
I'd like to say something. I live on 7th Street, so I live about 4 blocks. And before I was on the Planning Commission, some of you all would remember this, it was last fall, I think Kevin, you probably remember this, that as a private citizen, I wasn't very keen on this, but that's because I didn't really do any investigation. And I have a friend of mine who lives in Germany, he's an American, has his doctor of glaciology, and he's quite a, kind of a wonky guy, and I asked John, I said, look, do some research for me. Because I owe it to my neighbor, and I can share you, Joe, but he said, look, if you're worried about tanks blowing up, there are a lot of other things to worry about in life, but I wouldn't spend a lot of time worrying about nitrogen tanks blowing up. So I guess what I'm saying is that as a resident who's 4 blocks from, I'm okay. I'm ready to support it. I've done a reasonable amount of research on it, and I'm okay. And I live there, and that's with my wife, and I don't think I'm putting my friends or my wife in danger by being in favor of this. So, just thought I'd say that.
Any other questions?
I'll clarify the legal standard for the commissioners if you like. Planning Commission is right now making a decision on whether or not to approve a light industrial use as a principally permitted use in the B3 zone. So our ordinances very specifically lay out the decision that that's to be made on, and it's an exhaustive list of whether, based on the degree of objectionable smoke, noise, odor, glare, vibration, and heavy freight traffic generation. So based on the text of the ordinances, those are the criteria on which the decision must be made.
Okay. Do we have other comments from the audience? Positive or negative?
Commissioners, thank you for going through this procedure here tonight. One question that has come up is about on-street parking.
Could you tell us who you are?
I'm sorry,
Everybody's
Darren?
not going to know.
Yeah, Darren Jordan, City Manager. You've talked about on-street parking, and you've talked about moving the loading docks to Madison Street. What I have not heard and has not been explained, at least to staff to my knowledge, is how those trucks would back into a loading dock when there are cars parked on the on-street parking, and if it's going to be a requirement of the city or an expectation of the city to remove on-street parking. I think that is a valid information point that we would need to consider.
And redoing the streets around Madison.
Well, I mean, your decision is not based on that, but aspect of the existing, for your decision tonight is if those loading docks are moved to Madison Street, is there an expectation from the city's standpoint that on-street parking would be removed, so trucks can be able to back into a loading dock, even though they can define when they are loading or unloading, as has been explained. But if there are cars already parked on the street at that time, will we be called down to have those cars moved? So, that's just a different, with that loading dock on that side for
The reason why
consideration.
it's about that is because in the ordinance, we're talking about increasing the vehicular traffic or heavy traffic around that area,
Yeah.
which is not initially built for it,
Right.
around the full block. So that's why was the city
Yeah.
prepared to do that, to keep it from looking like.
Outside of that aspect, I think it's important for the city to understand what the expectation would be for those loading times.
Has that been discussed with the city about what changes to be made there?
To my knowledge, it is not.
Okay. Does that fall upon us to,
I think it's part of the
Direct that?
consideration and
or
those,
do we defer it to,
I think, well, as the attorney
Engineer?
laid out the,
I think heavy freight traffic
Traffic.
generation is one of the
Considerations.
considerations that you have to make.
so. And the question being asked is not the city saying we are supportive or against, it's just for your consideration as you make, so you can make an informed decision.
Absolutely.
is it reasonable then to defer this to engineering to give us a recommendation as to that? I mean, do we need to have that input?
I don't know that if they're in the middle of the street, that they're not going to be able to back in without, with cars there, because they're not going to be parked in front of them. I don't see how it would be an issue, that cars would have to be moved. Am I incorrect?
No, I do.
I just know I'm not qualified to make that.
I'm not either,
Well,
but
neither, but, I mean, I go past this place all the time since I live so close. I mean, so you work off a loading zone and so
Yeah.
cars park either side, and you just back
You
in.
just back
I mean,
in.
I don't see this big problem, but then I'm not a professional truck driver, but.
Our city manager's brought it up, so I think we
Yeah.
can.
Yeah, I think the concern would be the cars that will be parked in front of Madison Hall on that side of the street as the trucks pull up
okay.
and need to make that turn in. Of course, everybody knows if you backed up a trailer, especially a semi, which I have not, thankfully, there is, the turn radiuses are different. And so I think what's that?
It's the best of both worlds, the way you designed it, Jeff. I mean, it's not like
Yeah.
you're turning up at 90 degrees, it's just it's like about a 45-degree angle.
Yeah, I think the desire, the desire of cryogenic processors would be to utilize the loading dock as it is, as it has been used for 40 years in that location, with much reduced truck traffic from what the former building occupant had. That would be the desire. But understanding the concerns of the city expressed in the previous petition, they looked at, and we looked at as a design team, relocating the loading dock to Madison Street to eliminate potential blockage of traffic, because there's no guarantee that traffic will be blocked. If you time it right with the traffic lights, I mean, you can get backed in, and if the trucks are staggered and scheduled at appropriate times, there may be no blockage of traffic. And so there's pros and cons to each location.
That was part of the point what I was making. It's proposed to go to Madison, but it doesn't say it is going to Madison. So there's some can and coulds and proposed and will be and shalls in this proposal, which leaves a lot of opening. And with the gentlemen that own it and doing it today, if it was a transfer ownership through sale within a month, would those woulds, cans, maybes, and shalls, would the proposals be gone with that transfer? Could that happen? Absolutely. So we propose the removal, but could we stay there? Yes. It could be some murals, but will there be murals? I don't know. So that was the nitrogen tank protection is. There's just gray in all of the areas that Mr. Bradford made that we should be looking at. To me, is not been said, yes, this shall be, this will be like this. And we went through the proper channels with the city to ensure that the traffic will be no parking or not. So we can't just say, okay, we're going to go to 3rd Street, which was the initial issue that was brought up, blocking the 3rd Street traffic. So, because that's been done before. Maybe not at the degree of Amerisource at its highest peak, but not any in the last decade, I don't think. So it would be new, and it's probably more traffic on 4th Street, I would think, as it was then. So 1 an hour depends on the driver. I've seen trucks blocked where I thought I could put it in there, but then you have a good driver. Maybe so.
And the same thing occurs right across the street here on 3rd Street at the post office. Trucks do block 3rd Street there. I mean, so the precedent has been set, and I don't mean to sound argumentative. I'm not Mr. Benberry, but there, there is a precedent that has been set previously with this building. There's a precedent that's in place now with the post office and deliveries, and I don't know what the frequency of trucks is there. I honestly don't know. I just watched it happen one day from the Paducah Bank room at the Chamber building. So I think ultimately, the language that is in the staff recommendation is, we didn't write it, but I think, from a design standpoint and from the owner standpoint of this property, they want to do what's right, and will do what's right, and what this board and what this commission wants them to do.
Thank you.
So, once again, we're only voting on changing to an industrial.
No, we're not.
No.
We're not changing anything. It's already
No.
Zone
Zone's
B3, and
correct.
Zone B3 allows as a principally permitted use light industrial operations. However, unlike the other light industrial operations, our ordinances have a parenthetical that says that it has to be approved by the Planning Commission for these reasons. So my reading of that is that any reason outside of those listed in our ordinances would be beyond the authority of this Planning Commission to consider.
Like the fog, that has nothing to do with us. But the traffic, maybe. Well, no, because it actually does.
Well, if you can fairly define it as objectionable smoke, noise, odor,
Right.
glare, vibration, or heavy freight traffic generation, then it's within your scope of consideration.
And then subjective of what's heavy freight traffic relative to where it was before. So we could do this all day. Mr. Wilcox, do you have some comments you want to make?
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Bruce Wilcox. I'm the president of Greater Paducah Economic Development. We are a public-private partnership that exists to proactively recruit jobs and industry into our communities. Companies that bring high-quality, high-paying jobs with benefits. As I was preparing for the comments this evening, I did a little bit of research this afternoon as to what is a livable wage within the state of Kentucky. With all of the inflation that we've seen over the past couple of years, things have changed. So I went to a few different websites, and according to wisevoter.com, it's a website to make voters allow them to make informed decisions. Kentucky has the 6th lowest living wage in the United States. So from a business perspective, it's very attractive for companies to want to locate here. We've seen this firsthand with many announcements across the state of Kentucky over the past year and a half. Even here in Paducah, over the last 12 months, our organization has been involved with 170 of those. The Kentucky living wage amount is $15.46. So I repeat that, $15.46, just over $32,000 per year. And as you know, Paducah is the regional hub for a variety of business sectors, restaurant, service industry being one of those. Over 11%, or 4,700 of the 42,000 jobs in McCracken County is in the food service, restaurant, service industry. Typically, most of these jobs do not, I repeat, they do not carry insurance or benefits for their employees. Our location quotient, which is an indicator of job density, the types of jobs you have in the community, for the restaurant and service industry is 1.41 for our community. That means we have 41% more restaurant and service-related jobs than a community typical of our size. A standard number is 1.0.
The average rate of pay for a restaurant or service worker in our community is $27,100 a year, or $13.03 per hour, which is about $2.50 or $5,000 less than a living wage. Furthermore, we have 15% of the people in McCracken County living in poverty. I believe the United States poverty rate is just under 12%. All that being said, we have more people here in McCracken County in poverty on average than we do across the United States. I'll go even further and say that we as a community, we have an excessive number of jobs that don't provide benefits to our, and health benefits to our employees. That puts additional burdens on our healthcare systems, our transportation, school systems, and you name it. That's why it's even more important to secure jobs that have benefits and health insurance. So we need those types of jobs in our community. When I look at this opportunity from a zoning, a comprehensive plan, or a TIF district perspective, since we met last September, substantial additional work has been done and accomplished by our community. Just last week, an open house was held by Cryogenics to inform the community about the project, and no objections were brought forth by anyone in the community at that meeting. The facility zone B3, which allows for light industrial operations, as we've talked about here, approved by you according to the degree of objectionable smoke, noise, odor, glare, vibration, and heavy traffic. Cryogenic Processors has addressed each one of these items as noted in the zoning ordinance. Historically, the site was used as a drug distribution facility. Subsequently, it was approved as a hemp distribution facility with probable odor issues and substantial traffic. And later it was approved for cryptocurrency mining facility, which would have generated upward to 70 to 75 decibels of noise 24 hours, 7 days a week. The two latter projects coincided directly with the timing of the City Block project and the Riverfront Build Grant. Cryogenics will establish its operation with no objectionable smoke, minimal noise, no odorous issues, no glare or vibration issues. And finally, with about 1 truck per hour per day, there will not be a major impediment to traffic flow. Furthermore, as you've seen from the re-engineered designs, Cryogenics has changed its traffic flow patterns with its modifications into the building. Part of the city's goal is to make downtown more walkable. As you've seen from the re-engineered design of the building, there are 4 new retail spaces created along the back side of the building to complement Farmers Market and the riverfront. Furthermore, significant designs and improvements are planned for the facade. And finally, this new investment in the downtown area, which also should complement or be credited to the city's requirement for certain capital investment requirements for the TIF district accreditation. From an economic development standpoint, this project checks all of the boxes. It brings additional living wage jobs with benefits. It creates 50 new direct jobs with an anticipated 45 additional induced and indirect jobs, and it's anticipated to have somewhere between a $7.1 and $8.4 million annual recurring economic benefit on our community. It offers our citizens who are making less than a living wage or living in poverty the opportunity to prove their quality of life. This project is a win for our community. So on behalf of Greater Paducah Economic Development, we respectfully ask that the Planning and Zoning Committee approve this project for the betterment of our community.
Any questions for Mr. Wilcox?
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any other questions or comments from the commission?
Is the truck dock moving, for sure? Is that the plan or is proposed?
The truck, so what's before the Planning Commission is to make that determination of if it's a light industrial use in the B3 zone. The final development configurations will be handled during the development review process.
So we don't know. As far as the traffic concern, we can't say that it's for sure moving.
Well, unless it's a stipulation of the action of the Planning Commission.
Typical to other proposals, does it then come back to this group for a final? I don't think that it does, once we, okay.
Because
so-
you aren't approving a planned unit development
Right.
or
So
some
we
type
need
of
to
development
establish this
plan.
up front. So your question, Mr. Benberry, is regards the truck dock is proposed to be moved to Madison. I think would feel more comfortable to have definitive language.
Because we talked so much about not blocking Third Street. And that's why this was designed, so it would go around and it wouldn't be a block. And it looks better from, even with the can closed during the Quilt Week and barbecue on the river. This can be, but doesn't mean it will be. And having those in language, because I think they've done phenomenal in meeting this and drawing, but there's no.
Okay. Before I ask you to quantify that into an amended motion, I would ask the applicant whether or not the truck dock is proposed to be moved. Does it hinder you by changing that language to that the truck dock will be moved?
We're prepared to operate with the facility as proposed. So if it is mandated that the building be modified to include the truck dock on Madison, then that is what we're prepared to accommodate.
Okay, thank you. Are you prepared to make a motion to that, to amend the recommendation to that? He gave an affirmative response, Mr. Summers. Is there a second to the amending the motion that the truck dock will be moved?
Chairman Wade, did we also want to include the murals in that as well, in that amended motion?
I would say so. And being shut down for festivals like the barbecue on the river. It's great.
I think that they will do what's right. I don't think we need to. And that's a whole process.
I do understand with the murals that if they find out that there's no artist that wants to undertake that, or that, I don't want to limit them on that. I do understand that, but I do agree that they're, I think, going to do the right thing.
Yeah. And for me, the murals are beautiful, but the landscaping, the lighting is going to do a lot.
Yes, and I do wonder about the murals facing the backside of the Quilt Museum too, so. We got to increase walking traffic for people to see those.
That's right.
Let's just leave it.
Sorry for that editorial comment. So do you wish to, we're seeking a second to, the truck dock will be moved. Before we seek that second, is there anything else you want to make a change to?
I think if everyone is okay with the language of proposed.
In which one?
And if we're going to accept it in one, we might as well accept it in them all. Even with the can be closed for the barbecue on the river, again, I think it could come back to haunt the city in future years. But
there is a whole planning process for any festival, and when they close the streets, the trucks won't be able to operate anyway. And that's a whole process where everybody, it affects all businesses down there, not just them. So I don't know that.
And that's hard to anticipate and
Yes.
and codify.
That you're limiting potentially.
I understand that.
For me, it's not. Because it's just not a deal breaker for me, because they have to go through a whole process for the festivals to do that with the community partners.
Okay, so Mr. Benberry, come back to you. Do you want it to be a motion that deals with item number 1 or all these other items too?
I think if we're going to accept it, propose as any of them, I'm okay with proposing the dock as is and leaving it the same.
Okay, so your motion
Just for the
would.
traffic, no motion necessary.
Your motion currently would be, say that again?
If we're using the language proposed and we're accepting that nitrogen tank is proposed to be horizontal, this is our proposed. If we're going to use the language in those, then I think I'm willing to accept the.
Oh, so no,
No.
you are not making a motion to amend number 1. Okay.
I stand it as a team in a vote. I would think we're good.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understood.
Yeah.
All right, so the motion on the table is what is in the staff report and as proposed. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, Mr. Summers, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner, excuse me, Commissioner Benberry.
Aye.
Commissioner Griffin.
Aye.
Commissioner Kaler.
Aye.
Commissioner Pollard.
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes.
Aye.
Chairman Wade.
Aye. Thank you all. All right. Our next item, Mr. Summers, is Old Coleman Road.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a proposal to close 33,517 square feet of Old Coleman Road between 3200, 3204, and 3226 Coleman Road. The right-of-way of Coleman Road used to be in this area until the early 80s, based on the best research that staff could find. The petitioner would retain most of the closed right-of-way, 24,376 square feet, with an additional 9,141 square feet going to the property owner on the east. We did have a few comments that's been made known to the professional representative, and they are here to answer any further questions that you all may have.
Okay, having heard the staff report, Commissioner Pollard, you have a motion?
I do. I move that this commission adopt a resolution forwarding a positive recommendation to the Board of Commissioners to vacate and close 33,517 square feet of Old Coleman Road between 3200, 3204, and 3226 Coleman Road.
Second.
Moved and seconded. This is going to be a public hearing since it involves a closure of a dedicated roadway. Anyone wishing to speak, please come to the podium and identify yourselves.
As Josh said, this has probably, don't know exactly when this was actually closed and relocated, when Coleman Road was relocated, but we think it was in the early 80s. And that's based off 3 recorded plats that we found that were recorded in the courthouse on surveys done on this particular property and the adjoining property. So there's no, you can't see this road now. What we're closing is just dirt. But Coleman Road was relocated several years ago. This road that we're closing as of today is just ground. You wouldn't be able to tell it if you walked out there now. The other thing that we're doing, Higdon Development owns on both sides of it. Also, R&S Incorporated owns on the easterly side of it. They will be getting a portion of that. We are dedicating an easement for the existing sanitary sewer manholes and sewer line that goes across it. That is dedicated on this particular plat. And we are abolishing 2 15-foot easements that were done years ago back in the 80s that have no utilities whatsoever. We do have a water line across the front on the relocated part of Coleman Road and a sewer line that goes in the middle of this road. We are keeping those easements and dedicating those to make sure that the utilities are taken care of. There's a gas main in the back, and we are keeping that dedicated easement previously. We're keeping that in place as well. The other item is Jackson Purchase has a electrical substation in the back. A portion of their drive that gets back to that crosses this Old Coleman Road, and we are dedicating a permanent easement for them to get back there.
Okay. Any questions? All right. Hearing none. Anyone else wish to comment on this?
Yes, my name is Travis Spiceland. I'm the Vice President of Engineering at Jackson Purchase Energy. So we are good with the closure contingent upon us being able to obtain an easement from the current Coleman Road back to our substation to have unrestricted access 24/7, to be able to maintain our subdivision and provide power to over 500 members of our cooperative. So happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
And what you asked for is included in this plat that was described, I believe.
I believe so, but I would need to see the plans, of course, to verify that we would be able to have an easement, because we may, I don't know if we will cross just the Higdon property, or if we will have to also get an easement for that other sliver of property that's going to the adjacent landowner.
Well, he owns.
The easement, as you have in front of you, does go across both tracks. The only part that we do not have is the part that crosses the RNS Incorporated property on the east side of this property. We have no control over that because it's not our property. So.
But that is an existing easement across RNS?
There is none that I know of. But it's not our property where we have the right to dedicate an easement across somebody's property that we don't own.
How are you servicing your substation now?
There is an existing gravel road from Coleman Road straight back to our substation.
And across our property and across the Coleman Road property, the two tracks that are being conveyed, we have dedicated an easement for them, a permanent easement. But what I'm saying is there's additional ground that RNS Incorporated has that is shown on a plat, and it doesn't have an easement, a permanent easement shown on that.
So basically, what we're proposing here will take you so far, but then beyond that, you do not have
Correct.
a right to pass.
They would have to get that, obtain that from the
And
RNS
that's
Incorporated
beyond us
property.
because we're not dealing with
Right, but we're
that
not,
roadway.
But do you have the easement now to get through there?
Yes.
You do? Well, just on Old Coleman Road.
I believe it's coming off of, to the best of my knowledge, it would be coming off of Old Coleman Road now, but with the abolishment of that, then we would
Correct.
no longer have the easement to get back to our
Correct.
substation.
but
What I'm hearing from Mr. Gardner is once you get past the crook of Old Coleman Road, you don't have an easement
yeah, we didn't see one on any plats that were officially dedicated.
across the RNS property.
Do you need one of these to look at?
I've seen a.
Here.
Or perhaps you
And I
look at
have a
Mr.
larger
Gardner's
one to see.
Yeah, I mean,
full-blown plat. I think that what your issue is beyond us, but needs to be addressed.
No, I think they're crossing before the band.
nobody's
We'll see.
until it is.
Crossing until
Until it is.
He doesn't have this,
that's exactly
but he's
my
getting so far.
think.
Yeah, that's what
Our
it looks to
problem
me
to
like.
move
You
this.
already done
And it seems like
have it.
Yeah.
Like that's not anything to do.
And that's beyond us,
Yeah.
but we got this,
Yeah.
but he's still got
He's still got to find that out. That's right. That's his. Either way, that's
I mean, it wasn't much of it when it existed,
Yeah.
kind of a chip and seal road.
what they're doing.
You talking about this, or you talking about, oh,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's on one of, the property description. It's just that we're not showing it.
I think they're crossing like here.
Yeah.
okay.
We'll see.
Anything you want us to know?
No.
Okay. Any other questions of the commission?
Yes. Did that satisfy your,
Yes, the portion I was unaware is the little portion that will be going to RNS Properties at the front of Coleman Road there, as long as that easement is conveyed through there. And
Thank you.
yes, beyond that, it would be nothing different than what we have now.
Okay.
thank you.
Trying to look out for our utility friends.
Yes, thank you.
All right, hearing no other questions, Mr. Summers, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner.
Oh, wait, I'm going to close the public hearing, then again, ask any questions of the commission. Hearing none now, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Pollard,
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes,
Aye.
Commissioner Benberry.
Aye.
Commissioner Griffin,
Aye.
Commissioner Kaler,
Aye.
Chairman Wade.
Aye. All right, Mr. Summers, Pines Road.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a final subdivision plat. It's for 12 townhome lots for 6 townhome structures to be constructed upon. The preliminary plat was continued generally at the January 5th, 2003 meeting of this year. All these lots are at least 7,000 square feet and have 75 feet per structure, which is in conformance with the R1 low density zone. I did have a note in here about a variance needed for the existing building at 3910 and 3914 Pines Road. That did go before the Board of Adjustment on Thursday, and that variance was granted. So there is no issues with establishing the property line down the center of the existing structure. So therefore, we are forwarding a favorable recommendation.
With that, Mr. Rhodes, would you read the motion, please?
Sure will. I move this commission adopt a resolution approving the final subdivision of property located at 3810, 3820, 3900, 3910, 3914, 3920, and 3930 Pines Road.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Anyone here to speak to this?
I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Does anyone have any questions? Hearing none, Mr. Summers, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Rhodes,
Aye.
Commissioner Benberry,
Aye.
Commissioner Griffin,
Aye.
Commissioner Kaler,
Aye.
Commissioner Pollard,
Aye.
Chairman Wade.
Aye. Mr. Summers, Cruz Avenue, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a request to waive 6 parking spaces for a multifamily development. Their proposal is 21 spaces over 5 buildings at 723 Cruz Avenue. There was a list of items that the petitioner forwarded to the Planning Commission as to why the parking should be waived for 6 spaces to be reduced. What is shown on their site plan is 36 spaces. What's required per statute is 42. However, the 2 main reasons that staff would look at is that the demographics of the anticipated renters are those on both ends of the economic spectrum, first-time renters and Paducah's senior citizens, which would gravitate more to one vehicle than a normal middle-class working family. And also secondly, is if the variance was not granted for 6 parking spaces, parking would have to be accommodated in the rear of the furthermost building, which could create some safety issues, meaning that the central parking lot can be seen by everybody around the periphery, and the more eyes on your cars, the more eyes on your neighbors, the safer you are. And so this wouldn't be created in that situation if parking was behind the furthest building. And the petitioner's professional representative is here to answer any questions that you all may have.
Okay, anybody want to speak to this?
Good afternoon. My name is Brad Goff. I'm a project manager with Bacon Farmer Workman. I'm the civil engineer representing this project. We are requesting a waiver of 6 spaces. We believe the city has demonstrated a need for additional housing, which this development will provide. It maximizes the space available. It was formerly 2 single-family lots with an alley in the middle. The alley has been abolished, and the adjoining lot lines have been abolished to create 1 lot. We also feel that this development enhances the community. As Mr. Summer said, space in the rear is not accessible. There is a 16-foot alley there currently, but it's overgrown, it's not maintained, and it's inaccessible. So parking in the back is out of the question. Additionally, the owner does have control over parking passes for his tenants. So it can be controlled how many cars are available to park in this lot. And in an event that the parking lot is full and it's overflowing, there is also additional street parking available. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Commission, have any questions? Mr. Bell? While we do not consider on-street parking in our calculations, I don't have a map that shows the frontage area, how many, but it does refer in a staff report about on-street parking is available for any overflow. How many units might that be?
Well, there's currently 21 units.
No, how many, on-street parking, how much space would there be for?
So directly in front of the
Yes.
property, I would estimate 4 or 5.
Thank you. Any other questions? Hearing none, Mr. Summers, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Chairman, we need the motion read.
Oh, wait, did we not?
I haven't.
I am so sorry. This has been a long night. Please read the motion.
I move that this board receive and file the application of TC-3 LLC to waive 6 parking spaces at 723 Cruz Avenue. I further move that the variance be approved based on the following finding of fact. The City of Paducah Comprehensive Plan supports population growth and housing choice. Housing choice is a City Commission priority. The redevelopment of this lot could help provide a catalyst for the redevelopment of underutilized lots in this area of Paducah. Multifamily structures are located to the east of the site. Therefore, the character of the area would be maintained. Safety of residents could be mitigated if parking had to be provided behind the building. The alley behind the property is unimproved, which provides an additional buffer to the property on 11th Avenue. The central parking lot can be seen by all residents, which helps to improve safety.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions? Comments? Hearing none. Now will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Kaler.
Yes.
Commissioner Pollard.
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes.
Aye.
Commissioner Benberry. Commissioner Griffin.
Aye.
Chairman Wade.
Yes. All right. With no other business on my agenda, at 7:29, I'll adjourn this meeting. Thank you all very much. Our next meeting is scheduled for July the 3rd, which happens to be right before holidays, so we'll probably be notified of a change forthcoming. Thank you.